Beetaloo Energy Australia Ltd, ASX, BTL on the Australian Stock Exchange, is a explorer and producer of gas in the Northern Territory, Australia. And joining me right now to talk about some recent developments and ongoing plans is the Managing Director, Alex Underwood. Hello, Alex.
G'day, Tim.
It's great to see you again and marvellous to see continued progress up in the Beetaloo and some offshore recognition. I noticed that there's a company called Inpex that has significant interest in the basin and significant amount of capital is going into the basin over the next 12 months. Please tell us about that.
Certainly. So the basin's really picking up at the moment, Tim. We've seen some significant capital initiatives and commitments right across the basin in just the last few weeks. So, as you mentioned, Inpex has farmed into a portion of Daily Waters Energy's acreage. That's a $208 million investment for 68,000 net acres, which values that acreage at $3,000 an acre, many multiples of the way that the listed stocks are trading in the Beetaloo. We've also seen Santos committing 200 to 300 million Australian dollars to an appraisal drilling program commencing later this year. We've seen Tamboran Resources raise $190 million in an equity raise, and just last week we announced that we'd completed a $66 million capital raise, plus Macquarie has upsized our undrawn $30 million midstream infrastructure facility to $45 million. So we've got $1 billion being invested in the basin over the next 18 months, which is just a dramatic increase in activity and a really good sign for the development of the basin.
And you've got a share purchase plan coming up for shareholders to get involved in this growth?
Yeah, that's right. We believe it's really important that all shareholders get a chance to participate. So an up to $5 million SPP will be launched very soon on the same terms as the placement.
So this is a significant vote of confidence. Now, what do you think is driving that? Is it the oil crisis that we're seeing globally, not just in Iran, but also the disruption in supply chain oil from out of Russia? And I mean, America is saying they've got plenty, but don't forget, their plenty of energy is exactly what you're cultivating up there in the Northern Territory. So how do you place the company in light of all these recent developments with the oil supply chain?
Well, the Beetaloo being a gas basin is incredibly strategically important to our country. And more broadly at the global level, there's been a huge shift in the geopolitical balance of LNG globally in the last few weeks. So we've seen the Iranians have hit the Qatari LNG export terminals. Qatar LNG CEO stated just a couple of weeks ago that up to 17% of total exports out of Qatar will be out of action for up to 5 years.
Ooh.
Now, this is a huge geopolitical shift because the very large and growing economies across Asia, particularly Japan, Korea, and China, are completely reliant on LNG to power their economies. And frankly, they can't rely on Middle Eastern gas as much anymore for energy security. The Beetaloo Basin, as we know, is very well linked into the existing LNG terminals in both Darwin and Gladstone. And indeed, what we're seeing right now is our Prime Minister travelling around Asia to the countries that export refined products to us. And LNG is a major bargaining chip in those negotiations to secure our liquid fuel supply line. So, just last week, the PM was meeting with the PM of Singapore, and the PM of Singapore gave some admittedly non-binding, but some commitments to continue supplying us with liquid fuels. But he did say that they need to rely on us for LNG imports. So, we see that Australian gas is going to be very important in this increasingly fragmented global economy we're in.
Yeah, the problem is getting that, fast tracking those approvals and getting that, as you know, in Australia, getting approvals for doing things in the resource industry is like climbing around under your house with all the spider webs. It's very uncomfortable. But, with Darwin being a deep water port, you're not very far away from there. In fact, Beetaloo's commitment has been first to the Northern Territory and supplying gas locally to the Northern Territory. So it follows that that would be upscaled for the export of LNG, I would imagine. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. So, yes, we are supporting the local NT market first. The gas belongs to the people of the Northern Territory, so that's only fair. We also see an opportunity to help the East Coast market, which is also facing dramatic shortages in the years ahead. I mean, the Bass Strait fields are really starting to decline. There are some more deposits there, but they're getting smaller and smaller and harder to find. So we do need a large-scale long-term opportunity to supply Australia's East Coast, but ultimately this will be an LNG export story. We've got 2 LNG projects in Darwin, both have expansion capacity available. It's time to get on with it and support our own economy and that of the broader region.
Absolutely. Made in Australia. You're going to have those little green and yellow kangaroo stickers on your trucks and the pipeline, which we all love. I mean, Australia isn't an independent nation, and I think it's very important that we retain control over our resources. We're a very resourceful country and very resourceful people, and our whole history has been built on primary industry. And to sell that out to foreign interests with no payback, could I say that word, is silly. And I think we should get on with it, as you said, get on with the business of building our country, build back better. But that's not the only exciting thing to talk about today. Because of this renewed interest in the basin, well, not just renewed, but accelerating interest in the basin, you have an opportunity with another raw material called sand. Now, please tell us what's so important about sand in the middle of Australia?
Sure. So when we drill our wells and we fracture stimulate them, we pump around 10,000 tonnes of frac spec sand into each well. So it's the water that creates hydraulic pressure to open up the cracks in the rock, and it's the sand that holds those cracks open. It's a major cost input to the cost of every well. I think on our last well, we spent around $6 million on sand. 5 million of that was trucking it from the other side of the country to our drill site. Now, the learned experience of the US was that getting frac spec sand as close as possible to your drill sites just immediately impacts your economics positively because you're not spending as much money on trucking. And so we as a company have made a proactive move to secure those sand supply lines by investing in a private Northern Territory owned business called Territory Sands. They have a deposit very close to our drill sites in the basin. We will be putting in a $10 million senior secured loan. It has options attached to it that gives us the ability to convert that into around 24% of their company. But critically, it gives us a guaranteed supply offtake of that frac spec sand, which will cut about $4 to $5 million of the cost of each well. So, we're really now focusing on how can we drive down costs while we're driving up productivity.
And you're not the only operator that's going to need sand for fracking because this renewed activity, well, accelerated activity, and I think we're talking in order of $1 billion of investment in the next 12 to 18 months, right? So these other operators will also face the same problems and need the same solutions as you just outlined.
Absolutely. We see that in-basin sand is one of many factors at play that we can all work together on to really drive down costs and drive up the level of activity in the basin.
Well, finally, let's talk about you're not just waiting for the oil to flow. You're actually going to go have a look for some more. And in that regard, you're doing some more exploration shortly in terms of seismic.
That's right. So on the western side of the basin, the properties we bought from Pangaea and Energy and Minerals Group about 3 years ago, just to remind your viewers, there was old seismic surveys done on those properties, 5 vertical wells drilled, a very, very large resource identified. That asset is now really ready to move into the appraisal phase. So we're going to be carrying out a seismic survey in the next few months on those properties to really delineate where to land these fracked horizontal wells. And given the strength of the interest we had in our raise, we're actually a bit better capitalised than we anticipated coming out of this raise. And so, there's the potential for us even to look at starting to drill on that side of the basin later this year, but that final decision is yet to be made pending the results of the seismic survey.
Fantastic news. Redefining Australia's energy landscape, Beetaloo Energy Australia Ltd, listed on the ASX as BTL, and if you're in the US, you can trade it under EEUGF, or EEGUF rather. And I've been speaking with the Managing Director, Mr. Alex Underwood. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us today.
Thanks, Tim. Great to chat.